agricultural marketing. The fact that most of the farmers in India are not really aware of this certain concept of grading, for which the end products of the agricultural marketing is less, and so is the Indian economy. The process of grading has to be acknowledged and enlightened amongst farmers because the graded produce fetch better price in the market. Grading helps to develop greater confidence between buyers and the growers. It increases the market efficiency. Heavy marketing costs in packing and transportation can be avoided by grading. And grading improves product uniformity within a particular grade and serves as the basis for price. So, we would like to conclude our presentation with this certain quote. Agriculture was the first occupation of a man, and as it embraces the world, it was our initial step towards a civilized life. Agriculture is not just farming and husbandry, it's rather heritage and future of India. It's been an honor to be among such individuals and able to present our perspective before you all. I, Prachi Jaswal, and I, A. Meghna, signing off. Thank you.
Thank you, Meghna and Prachi. That was a wonderful performance. Now, may I ask Dr. D.K. Biswal, sir, to ask a few questions to our participants.
Meghna and Prachi, you have presented very nicely. Your presentation is really marvelous. Can you answer my question? How a marginal farmer will benefit from the present system of marketing in India?
Sorry, sir, could you please repeat? We couldn't hear the question.
How a marginal farmer will benefit from the existing marketing practices of India?
Sir, as the term marginal, you meant by someone who don't really have a huge property or land? Is that what the question is?
Okay. Okay. That's what.
Now I request Lambodar sir to ask a question to the participants.
Very good morning to both the presenters. Nice presentation, but I would like to ask a very simple question. All of you know that there is a huge hartal or strike against the new agricultural policy made by the NDA government or Modi government. Why farmers are agitating against this? Do you have any idea? Hello.
Yes, sir.
You got my question?
Yes, sir, we did. Sorry, sir, we don't really know the answer. We're not sure about it.
It's all right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Meghna and Prachi. Now let's move on to the next participant, Aditi Rath of 11H. Let's see what she has to say. Over to you, Aditi.
Thank you, Revanshi. I would like to confirm whether I am visible, my screen is visible, I am audible.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Revered Principal Ma'am, esteemed judges, respected Supervisor Ma'am, respected teachers, and all my dear friends. Today, I, Aditi Rath, a student from class 11H, is going to present on my topic, rural banking. So this is the overview of my presentation. Firstly, let's look through the meaning of rural banking. Rural banking is the banking service that serves smaller rural communities. Unlike banks located in more populous urban areas, rural banks may have relatively small and specialized customer bases spread over a far geographical area. Now let's look through the performance of the rural banks. Loans made by rural banks are less likely to default than those made by the urban banks of a comparable size, according to 2018 reports delivered to the Federal Reserve System's Board of Governors, and also generate higher returns. Many rural banks also build better long-term relationships with their customers, creating social capital within small communities. In addition, many develop a detailed understanding of local business conditions. In more remote areas, one bank may be the only option available to the residents. Now let's look through the impact of rural banks on the community. One overlooked aspect of rural bank is the bank's role in the community. Unlike non-local banks, rural banks are deeply embedded in the life of communities they serve. Loan applicants are friends and neighbors, not just number on a page or an algorithm. Local banks sponsor sport teams, local charities, and scout troops, and buy advertisements to local venues. All of these things contribute to life and health of the community. In locations where the sole bank closed, the impact on the local businesses can be very dramatic. Now let's look through the influence of new technology. Some rural banks are adopting to the modern industry trends by expanding their technology and services. For example, in 2014, a small rural bank in Iowa introduced a ATM machine with a real virtual teller machine so that it can guide the customer to how to use. Next, we have the regional rural bank. The regional rural banks in India are the commercial banks operating in various rural areas of the country. The area of operation are fixed by the Government of India as it comes under the Ministry of Finance. The RRBs perform various functions such as providing banking facilities to the rural and semi-urban areas, carrying out government operations like disbursement of wages of MG and REJ workers, and distribution of pensions, providing para-banking facilities like locker facility, debit and credit card, mobile banking, internet banking, and UPI services. Then we have the limitations of rural banking. Firstly, haste and lack of coordination and branch expansion. Haste and lack of coordination and branch expansion has created a lopsidedness due to lack of coordination. Secondly, constraint in deposit mobilization. The RRBs generally exclude the richer village people, and these people do have some potential reserves for to deposit in the bank, and generally they hesitate as the RRBs credit policies are quite restrictive and strict. Thirdly, slow progress in lending activity. The RRBs are generally slow in pace regarding lending loans to the people. Lastly, urban orientation of staffs. The RRBs generally include the urban staffs who least care about the rural development and rural economy. In conclusion, despite of all these limitations, the RRBs have been trying their level best to achieve their goal. They indeed have proved themselves to be the small man's bank. They have contributed quite a lot to the development of the economy, village economy. The importance of the rural banking in the economic development of a country can never be overlooked. As Gandhiji said, real India lies in the villages. The village economy is the backbone of our country. Lastly, I would like to conclude with a quote by Muhammad Yunus, the founder of Grameen Bank and the Nobel Prize winner of 2006. Here we were talking about economic development, about investing billions of dollars in various programs. And I could see it wasn't billions of dollars people needed right away. Thank you for your patient hearing. Have a good day.
Thank you, Aditi. You did a commendable job today. Now I request Lambodar sir to ask a question to Aditi.
Thank you so much, Aditi. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, your audible.
Presentation is very good, but I want to ask you a very simple question. In which year NABARD was established?
Sir, which one?
NABARD, you know?
No, sir.
National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. Okay.
No,
In
sir,
which
I have
year?
no idea.
Okay. In which year your regional rural banks established?
Sir, it was around 1957, I think, after the nationalization took place, nationalization of banks, and it came under the reign of Indira Gandhi.
Yeah, it was done by Indira Gandhi, but the year is
Yes, sir, yes.
1975. Okay. It is
1975.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you, sir.
Now I would request DK Biswal sir to ask a question to Aditi.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Aditi, you presented very nicely.
Thank you, sir.
Please tell me, what are the other banks they are financing the farmers in rural area? What are the other
Sir,
banks?
sir, the national agricultural banks, which sir mentioned earlier, these banks generally provide loans and credits to the debit and credit all to the agricultural farmers and small rural entrepreneurs.
Do you think SBI is financing in rural areas?
Sir, SBI is financing or not, I don't know, but it is sponsoring the regional rural banks as 35% of shares are owned by the public sector banks.
Do you know
It is
cooperative?
investing some amount.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you, Aditi, for your beautiful answers. Now let's move on to the next participant, Tanisha Parida of 12J. All the best, Tanisha.
Thank you so much. Am I visible and audible clearly?
Yes, you are both visible and audible. Please start your presentation.
Yeah, just sharing the screen once. Please give me a moment.
Tanisha, shall I call you later on?
Yeah, thank you. It's actually not visible to me in the settings.
So we move on to the next contestant, that is Sneha Shruti of 12I. All the best, Sneha.
Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone. I, Sneha Shruti of class 12th I. Today, I am going to express my views on the topic rural development and Indian economy, and my subtopic is alternative livelihood option. So, first of all, I will talk about what is a livelihood. A livelihood is a means of making a living. It encompasses people's ability, assets, and income and activities required to secure the necessities of life. As we all know, agriculture is the main option on which most of the people are engaged. So there are various options available which an individual can choose for earning livelihood apart from agriculture, which is called alternative livelihood option. For example, vegetable production, grass cutter, fish farming, oil palm cultivation, mushroom cultivation. Fisheries. So, what are fisheries? Fisheries are the area of the sea where fish are caught in large quantities for commercial purpose. A fishery is a place where fish are bred and reared. Commercial fisheries include wild fisheries and fish farms, both in freshwater bodies and the oceans. There are various kinds of fisheries. So, they are industrial fisheries, small scale fisheries, traditional fisheries, substantial fisheries, recreational fisheries, commercial fisheries, and artisanal fisheries. Importance of fisheries on Indian economy. Fish are other aquatic fish and other aquatic animals are an important source of food as it is rich in vitamins, minerals and proteins. It has role in the enhancement of food production. In a single year, economic impacts from recreational fishing grew across the board. Saltwater recreational fisheries supported 4,72,000 jobs, generated $68 billion to the GDP across the economy, and contributed $39 billion to the GDP. All matrices that increased 7% from 2015 measurement. And its main objectives are enhancing production and productivity of fishermen, fish farms, and fish industries, increasing nutritional standards of people through fishing production, conservation of depleted species of fish, employment generation, earning of foreign exchange from export of marine products. What are the roles that fisheries has provided on rural development? Rural development is considered to be of noticeable importance in the country today than in the olden days in the process of the evolution of the nation. It is a strategy that tries to obtain and improve and productivity, higher socio-economic equality and ambition and stability in social and economic development. Harvesting, processing, and marketing fish generates livelihood, employment, and income for millions of people. Till now, we have discussed about the importance and the advantages that the fisheries has provided to the rural development and Indian economy. But they are also facing some problems like lack of reliable database relating to aquatic and fisheries resources, weakened multidisciplinary approach in fisheries and aquaculture, inadequate HRD and specialized manpower in different disciplinaries, weak marketing and extension network. So we will talk about how what are the government approaches. So the government of India share in the form of grant in its and for the in items given under each component as per the approved norms. Subsidies on these items is given only once to a beneficiary norms. Subsidies on this item is given only to a beneficiary in addition to individual beneficiary. The financial assistance under the above component of the scheme is also available to SHG, that is self-help group, women group, and fisheries cooperative society, etc. Government should avoid financial infrastructure that will encourage overcapacity and overfishing. Aquatic resources gives a fundamental contribution to food and nutrition and security health. Be aware of potential adverse impacts on nutritional and associated cost. It is difficult to demonstrate direct health and dietary benefit from the self-governance activity. Let's take some home thoughts. We should not automatically assume that more food means better food. Encourage your health department to engage more with fisheries department. Considerable opportunity to improve rural livelihood, family nutrition, and health. We should not automatically assume that more food means better food. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanisha. That was an amazing presentation. I would like DK Biswal sir to ask a question to Sneha.
Sneha, am I audible to you?
Yes, sir.
You are vegetarian or non-vegetarian?
I am
You are
non-vegetarian.
Non-vegetarian. You love eating fish? You love
No,
eating
sir.
fish?
No, sir.
No. Can you tell me an organization which provides training to farmers, those who want fish cultivation? Tell me name of an organization.
Sir, I don't know.
Tell me a farm which exporting fish from Bhubaneswar to abroad.
So sorry, sir. I don't know the answer.
Okay. Thank you.
Now I would like to request Lambodar sir to ask a question to Sneha.
Thank you, Sneha, for very good presentation. I want to ask you a very simple question. Fishery is a farm activity or a non-farm activity?
Sir, it's a non-farm activity.
Okay. Why the people who are involved in the fishery sector, their condition is very deplorable. They are not so well to do. They are struggling. What is the main reason behind that?
Sir, can you please repeat your question?
We find the economic condition of the people who are in the fishery sector are very deplorable. They are very, very poor. Why?
Sir, because they do not have the adequate resources, or they cannot use the today's technology. So that's why they are not able to.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha, for your beautiful answers. Moving on to Sanjita Maskara of 12H. All the best.
Thank you, Devanshu.
Please switch on your video, Sanjita.
Yes, 1 second, please. Can you please say that, am I audible and visible?
Yes, you're audible and visible.
A very pleasant afternoon to one and all present over here, honorable judges, respected supervisor madam, esteemed teachers, and my dear friends. I am Sangeeta Maskara from 12H, here to shed some light on today's topic, rural development and Indian economy, and look deeper into the rural banking sector. Now, before getting into the whole sphere of this so-called rural banking system, don't we all have a curiosity as to what this rural banking or credit means? Of course, right. So let me tell you in simple terms. Rural credit is the financial support to the underprivileged people of the rural sector who are in need for certain activities. This was my own definition out of my understanding, and the rest bookish definition is of course known by all. Now that we have an inkling as to what this rural banking is, it definitely pops up the query as to if this is rural banking, then how is it exactly different from the general commercial banking? Well, this slide is just to answer that query. If you see the present slide, it clearly displays all the major points which differentiate between these two financial services. It clearly depicts the exclusivity of rural banking for helping the rural sector, which is not the same for the commercial system. Now, let us focus on our main topic, rural banking. It is common knowledge that services arises due to the needs and wants of human beings. So surely this whole concept of rural banking must have arisen from some needs of the deprived sections. Sure it did. So the points displayed here are the needs fulfilled by rural banking. Rural banks provide credits or financial help at reasonable rates for various goal achievements, some of them being daily purchases, commencement of new small businesses, and many more. Moving on to the various sources of credit or financing in rural areas. There are mainly two forms of credit, the informal one and the formal ones. As we can see from the pie chart displayed, the rural locals tend to depend on the informal forms more than the formal sources. They have their own reasons, such as no need of collateral, less documentation, and such. But the informal forms of finance come up with a very high interest rates, which turns out to be highly troublesome for the poor villagers. This is where the rural banking system by the government comes into the picture. Where they have laid out various schemes, programs, and many other things and institutions designed with the sole purpose of helping the needy and the poor villagers. The details are in the upcoming slides. Okay, now that we know the basics of the banking sphere, it is time for some in-depth knowledge. As we discussed above, this whole thing is a system. So surely there needs to be an apex supervisor to guide and supervise the running of the whole sphere. So the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, in short NABARD, plays this role quite efficiently. The role of controlling, supervising, and guiding the financial institutions set up for aiding the farm and non-farm activities is played very well by the NABARD. Now, the current slide depicts a case study, an analytical study of a standard rural development bank, the Assam Gramin Vikas Bank. The table shows the data of the growth of the different branches of the Assam Gramin Vikas Bank. This merely is just one case study. There are many, many more thriving banks in this sector who not only help themselves to thrive, but also the rural people to live their life with a little ease. Now, moving on to the SHGs, one of the most interesting and fascinating topic for me. Now we have talked enough on the statistics and theory of the rural banking and credit. So now moving on to the last topic for my spotlight, and quite important one might I add, self-help groups. Honestly, in my view, the whole concept and the idea behind the SHGs, where the people turn their liabilities into the assets, is quite commendable. How all the needy people come up and join hands to form a strong enough group to be self-dependent in the society. Now, I won't waste much time explaining the things which are already presented quite clearly on the screen. I would move ahead with a case study to explain my point and fascination. Before wrapping up, I would like to prove my fascination with one last case study. The person here is Radha Devi of some small area of Himalayan region. She leads the Nagun SHG, which mainly helps on the needy women. In this group, the women use all the basic knowledge they have in the tits and bits field of sewing, knitting, stitching, and many other basic stuff and give their best. Their hard work and efforts over the years have led Nagun to be one of the most successful SHGs in India. Now, I would like to conclude with one single quote by the great personality and Nobel Peace Prize awardee, Mr. Muhammad Yunus. People should wake up in the morning and say, I'm not a job seeker, I'm a job creator. He inspired many, many needy people to stand up on their own and not be dependent on others, but be self-dependent. That's all I wanted to present. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.
Thank you, Sanjita. That was a fabulous presentation. Now I would like to request Lambodar sir to ask a question to Sanjita.
Very good presentation, Sanjita.
Thank you, sir.
I am quite impressed by your presentation. So I shall ask you a very good question. Since your presentation is very good, I shall also ask you a very good question to you. I hope you will be able to answer. Can you define what is NPA?
Sorry, sir?
NPA, non-performing assets.
The non-performing assets. So I'm not sure regarding this thing, but I can guess from the name that non-performing assets can be the assets which come into use, like without being put in use. Exactly, like the collaterals can be the non-performing assets. So I can guess this. The collaterals which are not being used at the moment, but they can be used as a backup for the credits which can't be paid back. I'm sorry if I'm wrong.
Non-performing assets are the major problem for the banking, because many people, especially the rural people, they take loan, but they never return. So when any asset does not give income to the bank, then that asset is known as a non-performing assets.
Okay, sir. Sorry, I couldn't answer.
No, it's okay. We should learn from each other. Okay, all right.
Now I request DK Biswal sir to ask a question.
Sanjita, congratulations for your nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Suppose you are a member of a self-help group.
Yes,
You want to take loan from a bank.
yes, sir.
What collateral you will deposit in the bank so that bank will give you loan? You are a member of a
SHG.
self-help group.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
So from what I have understood from the concept of SHGs, they usually pool in the resources they have from the small jobs they do. So can I explain it with an example, please?
Okay.
So suppose this is an SHG where women earn by doing small jobs like stitching and sewing, and they earn some basic things. But it is a group of 10 women. So if I earn 24 rupees, then it will be 240. Like this, the resources can pool in. In this way, they can have some assets with them in the form of resources. So they keep these resources as a collateral in the bank and get some credit, whatever they need.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sanjita, for your wonderful answers. Now I would like to call upon Jasmine Mahapatra of 11H and let's see what she has to say. Over to you, Jasmine.
Thank you, Debansi. Is the screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Agriculture is the most helpful, most useful, and the most noble employment of man. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. Honorable Principal Ma'am, esteemed judges, respected supervisors, revered teachers, and all my dear friends. This is Jasmine Mohapatra, the student of class 11H. Today, I would like to discuss something about agricultural marketing. Let's have a quick glance upon the agenda. Moving on. What is exactly agricultural marketing? Agricultural marketing can simply be defined as buying and selling of agricultural products. Here we can see the relationship between the producer and the consumer. On the left-hand side, it's a farmland where variety of goods are being produced. And on the right-hand side, it's a marketplace where goods are being sold by the vendors to the consumers. Marketing connotes a series of activities involved in moving the goods from point of production to point of consumption. There are two types of marketing. One is input market and the other product market. Input market includes items like metals, fertilizers, seed, and wood. These types of products are purchased by the producers, whereas product market is the market where final goods are being sold to the consumers, such as potatoes from farms, soap from shoe stores, etc. Now comes the importance of agricultural marketing. Widening of markets. As we all know, market is a place where people go to buy or sell things. Market contributes in rural development, food security, income generation, and it develops the market linkages. Employment creation. Employment in agriculture is rural based, but it is depressing to know that in rural sector, the rate of employment is low and was insignificant during the 90s. The remaining few points are as follows: increase in farm income, growth of agro-based industries, price signals, and adoption and spread of new technology. Markets are broadly classified on various bases. For example, location or place of operation, area or coverage, volume of transactions, nature of transactions, and number of commodities in which transactions take place. Now comes the functions of agricultural marketing. It provides critical opportunities for the development of agriculture markets to facilitate the exchange of agricultural inputs and outputs. It provides means and ways for the development or formulation of agricultural policies for the benefits of farmers, consumers, buyers, and sellers of producers. It ensures the implementation of agricultural marketing policies and agricultural development policies for the development of India. Advantages: quality and quantity maintenance, protection against spoilage, breakage, leakage of agricultural products, compression against cotton, jute, and wool, quality identification, product differentiation, branding, and advertisement, such as Amul ghee or Amul butter. Let's focus on the typical challenges of agricultural marketing. The diversity of agricultural production gives birth to several challenges to be faced by agricultural products and marketers. Slow and poor adoption of new technologies of agricultural production, lack of infrastructure and market support, lack of entrepreneurship and managerial skills amongst the Indian farmers. Here is the whole agricultural marketing circle. The first circle refers to the final consumer or the targeted consumer. The second circle includes the factors that can be controlled, known as marketing mix. which revolves around product, price, place, and promotion. And the third circle includes environmental factors that cannot be controlled, such as political and legal, economy, law and regulation, social and cultural, technologies, and demography. After going through these contents, we can say agricultural marketing helps to reduce unemployment rate by creating more employment opportunities in the country. It increases the standard of living and eradicates poverty. Therefore, I would like to conclude here. Thank you for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Jasmine. That was a wonderful presentation. Now I would like to request DK Biswal sir to ask her a question. I would like to request DK Biswal sir to ask her a question. Now I would like to request Lambodar sir to ask Jasmine a question.
Thank you so much, Jasmine, for your very good presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I shall ask you a very simple question.
Yes, sir.
So agricultural marketing is facing so many problems.
Yes.
Yes. So what is the most important problem which our farmers are facing to do the marketing of their product, and they are not getting a remunerative price or a reasonable price? Why they are unable to get a reasonable price? What is the main problem?
For the farmers.
Yes, for the farmers.
So there are many challenges the farmers are facing nowadays. So particularly, sir, nowadays the product price for some goods are increasing. So the farmers are demanding to lower the price so that the consumer so that the consumer gets so the consumers get easy to buy things. So farmers are requesting so that they can enjoy the freedom of choice relating to sell and purchase of farmers' produce.
Yes. Mainly the problem is your existence of a large number of intermediaries. There are many intermediaries between the final consumer and the farmer. So the main part of the price is misappropriated by the others instead of it is coming to the pocket of the farmer. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jasmine, for your beautiful answers. Next, we have Jagannath Das of 12J. All the best, Jagannath.
Thank you. It is visible?
Yes, it is visible.
admirable afternoon to one and all present over here. This is Jagannath Das of class 12J going to present on the given topic, rural development and Indian economy. And I am going to emphasize on rural banking. So, what is rural development? Rural development is a process of improving the standard of living and the economic well-being of the people living in the rural areas. Once Mahatma Gandhi said that India lies in village. What did it mean? According to 2011 census, 68.84% of the population lives in village, out of which 61% of the population depends on agriculture. India is predominantly an agricultural country and farming is the main occupation. So we can say that rural development still remains the core of overall development of the Indian economy. So it is very important for the government to be productive and emphasize on the rural development for the overall development of the country. Now, let's know something about the Regional Rural Bank, RRBs. The RRBs were established on the recommendation of Narasimha Committee on Rural Credit. The committee has a view that RRBs would be much better than the cooperative bank in meeting the financial need of the farmer. Considering the recommendation of the committee, the government passed a act as the Regional Rural Bank Act 1976. This act was implemented for the incorporation, regulation, and winding of regional rural bank with a view to develop the rural economy. After passing this act, within a year, 25 RRBs were established all over the country. India's first regional rural bank was established in Moradabad, UP, named as Prathama Bank. And currently, there are 43 RRBs all over the country. Now, what are the main objectives and aims of RRBs? The main objectives of RRBs is to provide rural credit, particularly to the small farmers, marginal farmers, small entrepreneur, agricultural laborer, etc. The aims of RRBs are to bridge the credit gap existing in the rural areas, taking the banking services to the doorstep of rural masses, identify the financial need of the rural masses, making institutional credit for the weaker section of the society who have no access to the cheaper loan, to mobilize the rural saving and channelize them for the productive activity. And one of the most important aim of the RRBs is to generate employment opportunity for the unemployed educated person of the rural mass. Now, what are the problems faced in rural banking? First, growing overdues. Nowadays, growing overdues in the agricultural credit became a big area of concern. This is due to the incapability of farmers to repay the loan, and this is responsible for the threat to the smooth functioning of the rural banking system. In my opinion, one of the most appropriate reason for growing overdues is the government's waiving of agricultural loan time to time is a main reason for the rural indebtedness. This is done to decrease the burden from the farmer, but it actually harm the banking practices and the self-reliant capacity of the farmer to repay the. Second point, less attention to poor and marginal farmers. Due to lack of collateral, the poor farmer or the marginal farmer gets less attention. On the other hand, the big landlords or the big farmers gets more attention. Third point, slow process in lending activities. The pace of lending loan in the rural banks are slow, for which the small borrower prefer the informal sector of the loan to borrow the. Now, how can we improve the situation of rural banks? Banks need to change the approach from just being lenders to building a relationship banking with borrowers. By sending bank representatives to different villages before the crop season to provide loans and other information. Second point, small or marginal farmers should be attracted by providing loans in less interest and less formalities so that they can avoid the informal sector of loan. And in many remote areas, people are not aware of the banking services or the rural banking system. So the government should organize some program to aware them of the banking services. At last, I like to conclude my presentation by sharing few lines by a great Indian philosopher, nationalist, and also a journalist, Sri Aurobindo, that a village is the cell of the national body and the cell life must be healthy and developed for the national body to be healthy and developed. From all this, we can say that the rural development and the country's economy are correlated. And in one line, we can say that rural development, India's rural development is feeder to the India's economic development. Thank you. Have a nice day.
That was an amazing presentation, Jagannath. Thank you. I would request Lambodar sir to ask him a question.
Okay, thank you, Jagannath. Very good name. You are
Thank you, sir.
representing our culture. So my question for you, even if there is a good provision, I am not saying that adequate provision of institutional credit is there, but so far as my knowledge goes, there is very good provision of a rural institutional credit in rural areas. And farmers are encouraged, they are given different training program to take advantage of that. In spite of that, their condition is not improving. Why they are not able to take the advantage of all these things? Where is the problem?
Sir, in the banking system, sir, there are many formalities, sir, to be maintained. But that small farmers or the rural people are not able to clear that formalities. So they prefer the informal sector of loan. And but in end, they suffer the debt.
I feel we have to, our educated youths, they should take the lead. That is the main problem. They are not coming forward.
Yes.
They should be, if you take the example of America, other countries, their agricultural engineers, they are taking the lead of agriculture. But
Yes.
here, yet the concept of a gentleman farming is not coming up. We have to work on that. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to request DK Biswal sir to ask him a question.
Jagannath, you have presented very nicely. Can you ask my question? Why a farmer borrow money from the bank? What is the purpose of a farmer to borrow money from regional government?
Sir, for the expenditure of his agriculture farm.
Only agriculture activities or some other purpose?
Sir, for other purposes also, sir, for his marriage purpose or any. Sir, actually, sir, they borrow many loans from the informal sector to repay the loan from the informal sector. Also, they borrow loan from the banks.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for your beautiful answers, Jagannath. Moving on to Akshat Das of 11E. Over to you, Akshat.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Am I visible?
No, please turn on your video.
Well, am I visible now? And is my screen visible?
Screen is visible, but you are not visible.
Okay.
Now you're visible.
Yeah, great. So, warm greetings, Akshat here. This morning, I'm going to explicate the current scenario of Indian rural economy in terms of banking and its role in enhancing the Indian economy on the entirety. I'd like to declare at the very beginning that the stats must be changed due to COVID pandemic and that no recent data was available in that regard. First thing to pop in our head when we say the word rural is poverty. This comes directly from the World Bank for the fiscal year 2015-16. 80% of 270 million, that is 216 million poor people live in rural India. Dr. Abhijit Banerjee said, and I quote, "Poverty is not just a lack of money, it's not having the capability to realize one's full potential as a human being." So, how can we fix it? When the agricultural sector is facing an acute crisis in getting an adequate price for its produce, rural non-farm sector comes to the rescue. RNFS includes all economic activities with household and non-household manufacturing, handicrafts, processing, repairs, construction, mining, quarrying, transport, trade, communication, community and personal services, etc. According to the Economic Census of 2013, about 65.27% of the rural Indian population is engaged in RNFS. The comparison on the right shows the increase in employment over the 8 years. A total increase of 16.52% has been seen between the two economic censuses. This is obviously a very good sign while making a $5 trillion economy, isn't it? Anyways, here's a graph of alternate livelihoods taken up by India's rural dwellers. A majority has taken up both retail and wholesale trade, making up about 40%. Next comes manufacturing, which absorbs 26% of rural workforce. 0.3% employment in mining and quarrying combined shows the unendurable burden on agriculture in the primary sector. It's especially amusing to me that the transport and storage offer just 4% employment. For these numbers to turn around, capital is a requisite. Let's have a look at the current lending figures. The trivial 1% employment in enhancing rural infrastructure would be enhanced with facilitation of formal credit, but unfortunately, RIDF has inclined year on year. The same is with warehouse infrastructure funds. It has plummeted from 1091 crores to mere 844 crores. This has a detrimental impact on transport and warehousing as well as agriculture due to unavailability of adequate storage facilities. The increase in NABARD infrastructure development assistance will indeed provide a degree of development. Credit refinance into NFS will help the struggling rural dwellers to successfully move out of rural poverty. So will do the refinance into SHGs, as this will eventuate to more of cooperatives such as Ligjal. There is a chart which shows the distribution of sources of credit on the basis of disbursement. And it's embarrassing that such so-called successful government campaigns, most of RNFS depends on self-credit. Here, 13% of other institutions mostly includes NGOs. All this while we discuss the rural financing and employment, we missed a badly neglected stakeholder of RNFS, handicrafts. This has received barely any fiscal support over the past 5 decades. So less so that the latest stats found according to the 6th economic census state that only 1.84% of these businesses ever receive formal credit. So I can't ever get into mera ankda, aapka ankda. And I believe this sector is so tiny and vulnerable that they might always be overlooked in the future. Anyways, after looking into these problems for about 5 years now, I have a few suggestions to fix the current economic problem of rural India. All of my suggested solutions are very much interlinked. First comes cooperative model for manufacturing. This method wouldn't require much of government intervention and for good reasons. Although this method would take up a long time for successful execution, it will yield positive results for an eternity. It will all begin from 3 crops being selected, which will be grown for at least 5 next decades. Most suitable combinations will be sugarcane, paddy and legumes, and cotton, paddy and legumes. One of them will be declared as the primary crop. Simultaneously, a processing mill has to be set up on credit from NABARD to process the primary crop. The land holdings will have to be collectivized, which will eventuate in vast land areas giving high production. Crop rotation will be a mandatory practice to minimize expenditure on fertilizers. This process will exclude any and every middleman costs. The mill shall generate employment which will include semi-skilled labor and result in reducing the burden on agriculture, thus solving disguised unemployment. An SHG will look after the management and administration of the entire system. However, a common socialist outlook will be a requisite. Now, moving on to the second one. State-funded and managed warehouses at block level will be a boon towards not only RNFS but also towards agriculture and its food security. Employment in construction through MGNREGA would be an immediate outcome. Subsequent employment will be in logistics in short run. However, in the long run, employment is probable in warehousing, transport-related maintenance activities, communication, and maintenance of roads. So the last one isn't taken up by government of India very often, unintended. Overhauling rural India is interminable but inevitable. By bringing it to a close, I'd like to ask everyone to not seek a change if they don't contribute to it themselves. Thank you and be a part of change.
Good effort, Akshit. I would request DK Biswal sir to ask him a question.
Hello, Akshit. Congratulations for your marvelous presentation. Your area is also very new area. Can you tell me what do you mean by MG Narega?
Sir, MGNREGA is right to work. It gives 100 days of...
Its full form.
So Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act.
Okay. Please tell me what are the infrastructures that are required for rural development?
So the main will be warehouses and good roads. Good connectivity with nearest towns would be a requisite.
Okay, thank you.
Now I would like to request Lambodar sir to ask him a question.
Thank you, Akshit, for your wonderful presentation. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
So, in the government, many things are. So, one thing I want to ask is your part of your productivity, agricultural productivity.
Yes, sir.
Why the agricultural productivity in farming is not so attractive?
So like in terms of economic productivity?
Yeah, farm cultivations, I am talking agricultural production.
So because first of all, there are a lot of intermediates. The producers barely get any income of what they're producing. Rather, everything is taken up by the intermediates. From wholesalers to retailers, they take a lot of money.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Akshit, for your beautiful answers. Now let us call the next participant, Pratishtha Berisal of 12H. All the best, Pratishtha.
Thank you, Devanshi. Is the screen visible?
Yes, visible.
Thank you. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. With this, a very good afternoon, everyone. Respected principal ma'am, judges, teachers, and participants. I, Pratishtha Berisal of 12H, am feeling privileged to be a part of this seminar. So without wasting any much of your time, let's get on with the topic. Rural India is where 3/4 of our countrymen live, and the social welfare of India depends on the abundance of the villages. The removal of poverty is a must and is just the need of the hour. The nation can therefore be strong and prosperous only when all the villages are freed from the backwardness and poverty. The government is committed to the cause of bringing about rapid, sustainable, and rural development by strategies like sustainable livelihood, SSG and land reform cane development, diversification, and people development. Now, moving on to my subtopic, agricultural marketing. Rural people encounter many difficulties in marketing their goods. So, the issue of agricultural marketing needs urgent attention in the scheme of securing rapid rural development. comprising of operations involving in the movement of farm produce from the producer to the ultimate consumer. It is a process that involves assembling, storage, processing, transportation, packaging, grading, and distribution of different agricultural commodities across the country. The agricultural marketing system is an efficient way by which farmers can dispose their surplus produce at fair and reasonable prices. So, there are various problems faced by farmers, and some of them I have listed here. First, the manipulation by big traders. Farmers usually suffer from faulty weighing and manipulation of accounts while selling the produce to the big traders. Second, lack of market information. Farmers are often forced to sell at low prices due to lack of required information on prices prevailing in the market. Third, the lack of storage facilities. They did not have any proper storage facilities to keep their produce from selling later at better prices. Even today, more than 10% of goods produced by farms are wasted due to the lack of storage facilities. And that's when the government intervention became necessary to regulate their activities. The government of India adopted some measures to improve the system of agricultural marketing. First, regulated markets. The wholesale markets, or we can call them mandis, where all the buying and selling is regulated and controlled by the government to protect the farmers from malpractices and brokers. And it struck to me, and I would like to throw some light upon the farm laws of 2020, which stirred a lot of chaos across the country. And I would like to say the overview of the 3 farm laws. That is, first, the FPTC Act, or the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Act, allows a barrier-free trade of farmers' produce outside the physical premises of these markets, the mandis specified under the APMC Act. The second law is the Essential Commodities Act, makes provision to remove the items like cereals and pulses from the list of essential commodities to attract the foreign trade investment in that sector. And third is an agreement on price assurance and farm services. The second is infrastructural facilities. The government aims to provide physical infrastructure like road, railways, godowns, cold storage, etc. The third is cooperative marketing. The aim is to realize fair price on farmers' produce. Marketing societies are formed by the farmers to sell the output collectively and take advantages of the collective bargaining. And the fourth is different policy instruments. There are various policies issued by the government, and I would like to explain 3 of them. The first is minimum support price, or MSP. Here, the government fixes the MSP, or the offer price, to safeguard the farmer's interest, in which the government is willing to buy any amount of grains from them. The second is maintenance of buffer stocks. The FCI, or the Food Corporation of India, purchases the wheat and rice at procurement prices to maintain the buffer stock. Buffer stock is created when there is a surplus of produce and it is used during the surplus. It is used during shortages. The third is public distribution system, or PDS. Here, the fair price shops offer essential items like wheat, sugar, pulses, etc. at prices lower than the market prices to the weaker sections of the society. Agricultural marketing has come a long way with the intervention of the government, but the markets are still dominated by the private traders, moneylenders, etc. The control of government agencies is only 10%, while the rest 90% are all in the control of the private agencies. The rapid commercialization of agriculture in the era of globalization offer tremendous opportunities for value addition of agro-based products, which needs to be encouraged. With this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pratishtha. That was amazing. And now I would like to request Lambodar sir to ask her a question.
Thank you so much, Pratishtha, for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, sir.
My question for you is, there are so many problems faced by our agriculture sector. after economic reforms. That means after we introduce new economic policy in 1991. Can you tell me any one problem which our farming sector faced?
So first one
After
would
90,
I think would be the problem faced by the big money lenders or the big traders. The farmers lack information about the market prices, so they are forced to sell them to the big money lenders in low prices, and they can manipulate them.
no, that is, I am asking post-reform period. After economic reforms, 1991, there are many problems. That means our agriculture sector faced competition from the international agricultural sector. Our farmers could not withstand that competition. Another thing, our government also withdraw the public investment in the agricultural sector, like subsidy, etc. Or they also reduce the public investment in the agricultural infrastructure. Okay, thank you.
I request DK Biswal sir to ask Pratishtha a question.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Pratishtha, you have presented very nicely. Can you tell me what is distress sale? Have you heard the term distress sale? Some farmers, they made suicide due to distress sale.
Yes,
Have
I
you
heard
read
about
anything? Then tell me, you have presented agricultural laws recently amended by introduced by the central government. Do you support it or you are against it? You have
Sir, I support
already
it.
included in a presentation. Then
Sir,
why the farmers they are continuing to strike?
So firstly, there are many reasons for which the farmers are creating riots. Firstly, it would be the government brought in the act without any consultation with the farmers. And secondly, the farmers want that there should be MSP regulated outside the APMC mandis. And the intermediaries are they are completely eradicated, like the mandi commissioners, they are eradicated. And also the new farm laws, they completely exclude the jurisdiction of the civil court, like leaving the farmers remediless with no other independent medium of dispute, and they can only go to the district collector or they can only go to the district magistrate or the collector.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pratishtha, for your beautiful answers. Now let's move on to the next participant, that is C. Sambhav of 12I. All the best. Next participant is C. Sambhav of 12I.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So good morning, everybody. Myself, C. Sambhav. I'm from 12I. Today, I will be going to discuss the topic rural development and Indian economy. And the subtopic I've chosen is animal husbandry. So let's start with introduction. And what is rural development? Rural development stands for the increase in income opportunities for the people living in rural areas, which will in turn help to make the standard of living a little better. And according to population census of 2011, the percentage of people residing in rural areas is close to 69%, which is about 83.3 crore of the Indian population, which is a huge chunk of the population. And as per another report by the government, the percentage of Indian population that was situated below the poverty line in 2011 was 21.9%, which may have grown in 2020-21 due to the pandemic. So now let's talk about role of animal husbandry in rural area. So livestock contributes 16% of total income of small farm households and 14% of total income for all rural households. It also provides employment to about 8.8% of the population of India. And as people are employed, it provides livelihood to 2/3 of the rural community. And as it provides livelihood, it contributes 4.11% to the GDP and 25.6% of total agriculture GDP. All this information was sourced from year 2015-16. And this is livestock survey 2019. So livestock survey are held every 5 years from starting from 1990. So livestock survey 2019 was the 20th livestock survey, and these are the information. Cattle grew 0.83%, the number of buffaloes grew 1%, goats 10.10%, sheep 14.10%, pigs decreased 12.03%, and poultry increased 16.80%. Now let's talk about problems faced by farmers while practicing animal husbandry. So feed scarcity. As India is a developing nation and not many farmers are financially stable, so they face feed scarcity for the animals. Unavailability of water, especially in dry season. So not the whole country has season like Bhubaneswar now. Most of the year it is very dry and hardly ever rains. So it's a problem for the farmers and herders who face difficulties for providing water to the livestock. And animal diseases. Animal diseases is a huge problem in India. After every 6 or 7 months, some flu breaks out in India, which becomes very hard to control by the farmers. Lack of animal housing. We may have noticed that we see bulls and cows roaming on the streets because the owners of those animals don't have proper housing for them. In absence of stock routes and conflict between herders and farmers. So stock routes are the routes which the herders and farmers take to shift their animals from one place to other for grazing purposes and bringing them back. And herders and farmers often have conflicts because in most villages there are 1 or 2 stock routes for all the farmers and herders. And next problem is low productive capacity and poor reproductive performance of local breeds. So not all local breeds perform very nicely in production of milk, eggs, and meat. So that is a huge problem for the farmers. Now let's talk about suggestions to solve these problems. So for to solve feed scarcity, training on improved feed conservation, efficient feed practices, and food processing must be given to the farmers and herders. So as efficient feed practices, the farmer should know what to feed and how much to feed, so that they get enough nutrition and they have stomach full of food. To solve unavailability of water, farmers should start with water harvesting, creating pastoral wells, and development of standing pools. Now, what are pastoral wells? As pastures are land where animals graze, some farmers build wells in or around the pastures so that the animals can have water whenever they want. And development of standing pools is basically a dug up land in which mostly the rain fills up the water. Next is promoting diagnosis, prevention, and cure of common animal diseases. Farmers should get the training to know which animal has got which disease, and they should know how to prevent, like they should isolate them or whatever the situation is according to that, and they should get the basic information of how to cure them. Now, providing technical and financial help to local farmers and herders. Well, technically, the government has helped quite a lot by giving internet at cheap costs, and financial help the government should do so that the farmers can afford animal housing. Next is creation of livestock corridors and transhumance through community consultations. What are livestock corridors? These are exactly the same thing, which are stock routes. And transhumance in hilly areas in cold seasons when the hilltops are covered with snow. The herders bring the animals to a lower region where they can graze in the cold season. And when it's a little sunny and little warm, they take those animals back to the hilltops so that there are fresh grass. Improving quality of local breeds and introduction of improved breeds in interior areas. Like we live in urban area and we have broilers and hybrid chickens and goat available. But in interior areas where there is a much higher need of nutrition due to the more work people do, uh, better quality of animals should be breed of animals should be introduced there. I would like to conclude by saying animal husbandry is protecting, sheltering, and breeding animals for our livelihood. It plays an important role in our country's economy. So we need to take care of them and maintain a happy and animal husbandry forever. Before ending, I would like to quote Gandhiji: "The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated." With that, thank you.
That was really impressive. Thank you, Sambhav. I would like to request DK Biswal sir to ask him a question.
Sambhav, congratulations for your nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
You tell me, do you know OMFED?
Yes, sir.
Have you purchased milk packet from OMFED stores?
Yes, sir.
Then you tell me some private farms, they are supplying milk in Odisha. You tell me one of them.
Sir, Milky Moo, Pragati Milk.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Then you tell me, have you drink Amul milk?
Yes, sir.
Amul milk. Do you know Amul milk?
Yes, sir.
From which state it is produced?
Sir, Gujarat.
Amul is produced in which state?
So the state of Gujarat.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to request Lambodar sir
thank
to
you.
ask him a question.
Thank you, Sambhav, for your wonderful presentation. I want to ask a simple question to you. What is cooperative marketing?
Sir, I don't know the proper answer about that, sir.
Amul is doing a wonderful job. In which state it is?
Sir, it is from Gujarat.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sambhav, for your beautiful answers. Now moving on to the next group of participants, Ayushman Khadanga of 11J and Abhinash Sahu of 11H. All the best you both.
Thank you, Devanshi. Devanshi, are we both visible?
Yes, you're visible.
Is the screen visible?
Yes, the screen is visible.
Our moods and insights are transitory. This current is a flow of grace moving us to our right livelihood, companions, and destiny. With this, I extend a very warm and pleasant morning to one and all present in this forum. Today, I, Ayushman Khadanga,
And I, Abhinash Sahu.
are going to present before you all a demonstration on topic, alternate livelihood options. So here we go. Introduction. A majority of the people residing in the rural areas in India have no access to the basic necessities of life. An estimated aggregate of almost 22% of our total population is still below the poverty line, lingering much behind.
Agriculture, even after being the major source of livelihood of the majority of our population, having the maximum share of rural economy, has a meager growth rate of 2.7%. Although 2/3 of the population depends on agriculture for its livelihood, yet the share of agricultural sector to GDP was on a decline. there has been increase in the share of industrial and service sector over the years. So the real development.
So the real progress of India is possible only when rural areas and rural people develop hand in hand with urban development so that an overall growth will be achieved. Now, after getting introduced, let's get to know what rural development actually is. Rural development is a continuous and comprehensive socio-economic process attempting to improve all forms of rural life.
In India, as agriculture is the major source of earning of rural people, development in agriculture will contribute to the betterment of rural areas and rural people. It not only includes agricultural development, but also includes rural development.
Agriculture has been a way of life to people since times immemorial. As it was a basic and primary source of livelihood for millions, it passed on from generations to generations, making numerous numbers of people depending on it as their exclusive source of income. This created a situation called disguised unemployment, where people virtually seem to be employed, but in reality were unemployed, creating a dearth of money which wasn't even sufficient to meet their basic necessities. Therefore, they moved from agriculture to other activities uninvolving agriculture, which gave birth to non-farming areas of employment. The non-farming areas of employment benefited the rural people in the following ways.
It provided them supplementary gainful employment. It enabled them to obtain successful and high levels of income, and at last, it provided them with ways to combat poverty and other issues.
The non-farming areas of employment include animal husbandry, dairying, fisheries, horticulture, and information technology. Now, we shall more elaborately discuss on horticulture. The term horticulture refers to the science or the act of cultivating fruits, vegetables, tuber crops, flowers, medicinal and aromatic plants, spices, and plantation crops. It is a prominent segment under agriculture and the fastest growing sector. Horticulture plays a vital role in providing food and nutrition to the rural population. It also addresses the problem of unemployment in villages, particularly about disguised and seasonal unemployment.
India is endowed with a remarkably heterogeneous area characterized by a great diversity of agroclimatic zones, allowing for production of a variety of horticultural crops such as fruits, vegetables, spices, plantation crops, roots and tuber crops, and medicinal and aromatic crops. It is an important sector of potential diversification and value addition in agriculture. India ranks second in producing fruits and vegetables in the world. Horticulture exports have helped the country to earn ₹14,000 crores in the year 2011 and 12.
Horticultural sector contributes nearly 1/3 of the value of agricultural output, that is, accounts for 30% of India's agricultural GDP from 8.5% of the cropped area. India's major exports include onion, mango pulp, fresh mangoes, dried walnuts, and fresh grapes, etc. India's export markets are South Asian and Middle East countries. India's share in the world trade in vegetables is 1.7% and 0.5% in fruits.
Horticulture has improved economic condition of many farmers and has become a means of improving livelihood for many unprivileged classes. Flower harvesting, nursery maintenance, hybrid seed production, and tissue culture, propagation of fruits and flowers, and food processing are highly remunerative employment options for women in rural areas. Thus, it provides a wider scope for women employment.
Horticultural data received from states are compiled by Horticultural Division of DAC. According to it, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Bihar, Gujarat, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, and Odisha are amongst the leading states in horticultural production.
Horticulture has helped India improve a lot, but it hasn't yet fully developed due to certain constraints: lack of institutional mechanisms, absence of proper systematic units for collection, compilation of horticulture area, lack of awareness among farmers, less rainfall and drought, inadequate use of modern equipment.
To overcome these problems, many precautionary measures and steps have been initiated by the government and have to be followed, such as there has to be a coordination between state departments of agriculture, horticulture, and Directorate of Statistics and Economics related to strengthen agricultural production, extend crop cutting experiments to cover all important horticulture crops. Area under cultivation must be increased. Modern and advanced technology should be used in large numbers.
There was a revolution carried out for the development of horticulture known as the Golden Revolution. Golden Revolution refers to the period in which there was a tremendous rise in the production of horticultural products like fruits, vegetables, etc. The period between 1991 to 2003 is known as the period of Golden Revolution in India. During this period, there was a rapid growth in the production of horticultural products. Golden Revolution made India a world leader in the production of mangoes, bananas, coconuts, etc. Nirpak Tute is considered to be the father of Golden Revolution in India.
Thus, horticulture has emerged as a successful alternative livelihood option and needs to be encouraged significantly. Enhancing its role requires investment in infrastructure like electricity and cold storage systems, marketing linkages, small-scale processing units, and technology improvement and dissemination. At last, but not the least, we would like to conclude by saying that the rural sector shall continue perishing unless and until some spectacular and magnificent changes take place. Thank you all for giving us this wonderful opportunity to express ourselves and have a marvelous day ahead.
That was a splendid performance. Thank you, Ayushman and Abhinash. I would like to request Lambodar sir to ask them a question.
Thank you, Ayushman and Abhinash, for your beautiful presentation. A simple question to both of you. Like Green Revolution, horticulture is also having one terminology. What is that?
Sir, it's the Golden Revolution.
Okay. So, do you know in which year second Green Revolution started in India?
Sir, can you please repeat?
Repeat again. Okay. In which year the second Green Revolution started in India?
Actually, your voice is breaking.
My voice is breaking.
Sir, now.
Okay. In which year the second Green Revolution started in India?
No idea.
Okay.
So,
First Green Revolution?
Sir, it was in the year 1960s.
1965. Okay. Thank you.
Now I request DK Biswal sir to ask them a question.
Ayushman and Abhinash, congratulations for your nice presentation. And I think both of you have presented in a very different area. Can you tell me, nowadays in Odisha people, they are using flowers at a very large scale. From which state it is imported? Flowers are coming to Odisha from which state?
Sir, actually,
Okay.
So, is it from Punjab?
It's from West Bengal. West Bengal. It is from West Bengal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful answers, Ayushman and Abhinash. Next, I would like to call M. Vijay Lakshmi of 12I. All the best, Vijay Lakshmi. Next participant is Marpetla Vijay Lakshmi of 12I.
Am I visible?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon to one and all present over here. I'm Marpetla Vijay Lakshmi of 12I.
present on the topic Rural Development and Indian Economy, and my subtopic is Alternative Livelihood Option, Beekeeping. First of all, let's discuss what does rural development actually mean. Rural development means development of the lives of people living in rural areas on social and financial aspects. What is the role of beekeeping in rural development? Beekeeping is a promising alternative option available, and here are a few points justifying my statement. First, consistent income. Beekeeping can provide one with consistent income if practiced properly, since honeybees hardly ever stop production. Second, development of social outlook. Beekeepers come in contact with many in the process of purchasing equipment and selling their products. This gives them exposure to outer world and it develops their social outlook. Third, skill enhancement of the beekeeper. Fourth, encourages biodiversity. In the process of raising honeybees, the beekeepers benefit the environment due to pollination performed by the bee, and it enables one to understand the importance of biodiversity. Fifth, more than just honey production. The products of beekeeping are honey, honeybees, beeswax, royal jelly, etc. Now coming to what is beekeeping? Beekeeping, which is also known as apiculture, is the maintenance of bee colonies, commonly in man-made hives by humans, in order to derive desired products such as honey, beeswax, royal jelly, flower pollen, etc. Moving forward to beekeeping as source of livelihood in rural India. Beekeeping is a good source of livelihood due to the following reasons. First, it can be performed all round the year as bees work through all seasons. Second, it supports horticulture as bees perform pollination, which speeds up the overall process of crop production. Third, it is convenient for rural areas since they have more plants, they are less polluted. The products can be sold locally and it also generates jobs. And the best season to start this for better income is spring, as there are more flowers and summer bees have to make food for winter bees in order for their survival. But the main question is, which variety to use? A beekeeper must choose the variety to be used thoroughly. The three main varieties used in India are rock bee, Italian bee, and Indian bee. Now let's talk about investment needed. Beekeeping requires initial investment to be made, which is highly affordable and minimum in nature. If we look at the box on the right side of our slide, we will see that the total cost is rupees 3,34,850. But if we estimated the maximum cost would be rupees 4 lakh to rupees 4,50,000. And just in case someone is not able to afford it, then they don't have to worry, since government has multiple schemes in order to provide loans to the people in need. And beekeeping also generates easy returns due to high demand in the market. Now, let's see the impact of beekeeping during COVID-19. One might wonder, now that COVID-19 is prevalent, has it not impacted beekeeping in any way? My answer is yes. It has impacted beekeeping under Indian economy, but in a positive manner. It has increased production as pollution has reduced during COVID-19, giving a better environment, and the environment is pesticide free due to less uses, which has improved the health of bees. And as the demand of Indian honey, Indian bees, etc. has increased in local and international market due to the recent recognition, and the quality has also improved, so it has resulted in increase of sales. Now, let's look at this comparison. If we look at this carefully, we can see that before COVID-19, as the pollution was more, the production was less. But during COVID-19, as the pollution is less, the production is more. As we have noticed from the above slides, we can conclude that India has a lot of potential for beekeeping. And in this pandemic, the potential has increased highly. Now we just have to recognize it and use it. In this way, unlike the present times, beekeeping can boost the Indian economy by contributing a considerable amount in the national income. So we can really say that beekeeping is farming for intellectuals. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you, Marpetla. That was a very beautiful presentation. Now I would like to request DK Biswal sir to ask her a question.
Hello, Vijay Lakshmi. Congratulations for your marvelous presentation. Are you fond of honey? Are you fond of honey?
Yes, sir.
Are you fond of honey? Can you tell me name of one company in India whose honey is the most demanded in the market?
Sir, Dabur honey.
Okay. Can you tell another name?
Sir, Patanjali.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Now I request Lambodar sir to ask her a question.
Thank you, Vijay Lakshmi, for your beautiful presentation. A simple question for you. What is agricultural diversification?
Sir, you are not audible.
What is agricultural diversification?
Sir, under agriculture diversification, the farmer explores and tries to diversify the products they are producing. They try to produce more than one thing. Like if they're only focusing on crop production, like if they're only focusing on wheat production, under diversification, they will try to produce more things. Like they will try to go for animal husbandry, dairy and beekeeping, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your beautiful answers. Now moving on to the last participant of the day, that is Tanisha Parida of 12J. All the best, Tanisha.
A very present afternoon to one and all present over here. I'm Tanisha Parida of Standard 11 12J, here to present on the topic rural development and Indian economy on the subtheme alternative livelihood options. Now, moving on to the next. What if you go to a shop to buy a pencil and there's only one type of brand available? So for obvious reasons, your choices will restrict down to just one. But when there's an expansion of brand and products, you get the freedom to choose in a diversified manner. Now, the same situation can be taken as a reference while we move ahead with the presentation. In a nutshell, animal husbandry, horticulture, fisheries, along with other emerging alternates, offer a lot of opportunities for diversification. However, development in reference to these alternates can provide an incentive for a shift of the workforce. The agricultural sector is now unable to absorb more workforce, and due to overcrowding, its productivity and growth is on a continuous fall. In addition, apart from during the two major agricultural seasons, farmers have no options to earn a living. Considering such problems, there is a need for a shift of workforce towards which the productive activities to attend development in rural areas. Now, moving on to the next. Fisheries. Fish are delicious, aren't they? If you are a vegetarian, then better luck next time. There are dozens and even more recipes on them, and hunting them is an important part of human culture all over the world. The fishing sector is an emerging alternative for diversification. It accounts for about 0.9% of our GDP. The economic rise of fisheries sector is credited to the active investment and budgetary allocations made in its favor. The major fishing producing states are Kerala, West Bengal, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu. India ranks third in fisheries production and second in aquaculture. Fisheries alone has employed 145 million people over here. Now moving on to the next slide. Major problems of fishing community. But there are several areas of consideration in this sector. The families of most fishermen are illiterate, also unemployed, and low per capita income and chronically bad standards of living are some barriers. Poor infrastructure, lack of cold storage facility in their boats, they are not able to give fresh fish, so the quality of fish comes down and so does the rate. When expenditure exceeds income reoccurringly, the fisher persons are left with no other options but to borrow. Borrowals are of several types and magnitudes. Some borrow under the severe pressure of urgent essential expenses, and few borrow even for promote their illusionary images. Now, vanity eclipses sanity at times. Certain strains of non-gainful loans lead to pains and pains. Some of the borrowals of the fisher folk reflect the straits of tribulations. Still, loans and interest and consequent damages to the fisher folk have become continuous features. Now, moving on to the next slide, which is the participation of women. Although women are not actively involved in fishing activities, they extensively handle export marketing and internal marketing. Therefore, there is a requirement for good credit facilities for women, linking women's SHGs, which is the self-help groups, to the formal banking system to improve the arrangement of financial rural entrepreneurs, including women. In India, out of population of 5.4 million active fishers, 3.8 million are fishermen and 1.6 million are fisherwomen. These fisherwomen are engaged in several fisheries vocations. The major activities in which women contribute can be noticed throughout the country are fishing processes and marketing. However, their participation and contribution are increasing in these areas of aquaculture, research development, and education. The involvement of women in these activities generates supplement income to support their families. Even though women are as efficient as men, earnings are not always the same. Now moving on to the next slide. Fisheries management. Here we'll talk about fisheries management and my perspective. Now, fish are also dumb, like this scene there, that they are dumb because they're easy enough to catch, right? Like you put a string holding food underwater and then they are a fresh and convenient meal by being the next prey themselves. And then the fish thought, let's swim in a group and it will confuse the predators. But here, with the most in this world, put a fishing net and pull all of them out. But this isn't that easy of a job as it sounds. From next time onwards, they know we aren't much of help as humans. And we giving them food is actually a way to lure them to be our food, a performers in the aquariums. So they are going to defend themselves in ways that can surprise you. Now the problem is fish are taken out of the water way faster than the fish could reproduce, which can hurt the population. Less fish means less reproducing and their productivity can decline, which ultimately means lesser profit for the fisherman the next time. As the demand for fish exploded over the years, where population boom and meeting the new demand is meeting the technology, which means fishing cheaper. There's GPS navigation and finding fishing spots easily and sonar to target specific places where they are in the water. Now this affects the sustainable development. In India, tourism play a vital role in country's growth. Most of the 80% of the tourist place in near seashore. So it attracts their customer. Every hotel is modernized and coastline are becoming concrete. It is also one of the environmental impact of marine. The most highlighted problem of the long-term use of the fishery is the problem with the open access conditions on the common pool resource. Now it's something new. Enforcing boundaries on water resources for this purpose is inconvenient, which is easier at land, and multiple people using the resource is pretty much easy in fishery. Though countries control their own EEZ, no part of the ocean is private property. This creates the fundamental aspect of fisheries. They are a common pool resource, meaning they are shared, public, and have no inherent way to exclude individuals from exploiting. Now, this is called the tragedy of the commons, which means the tragedy is when the full resource is treated as an open access and various individuals cannot collectively think about the sustainability of the resource, which is a harm to themselves with the present surplus production, which is hurting the fishery as a whole. But ironically, it's harm to themselves indeed. Now, I would like to wrap up my speech with the next slide. To encourage the research and development to support small-scale fisheries, it's what government should do, generating awareness about the new technology, healthy fish feed, and provide efficient financial support from government to bring new equipments. Now, as Mahatma Gandhi had said, rural electrification will fulfill the dream of every Indian. Now, this is because in creating national development policies without community, which means without rural system development as the centerpiece, such proposals are mere fiction. That's all I wanted to convey. Thank you and have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Tanisha. That was a magnificent presentation. Now I request Lambodar sir to put forward his question.
Thank you, Tanisha, for your beautiful presentation. And your presentation was something deviated from the others. So I was quite impressed. So two things I observed from your my presentation. One is common pool resource, and another thing, your tragedy of commons. So what is the tragedy of commons?
It's actually
Yes.
Tanisha, you're muted.
Please you unmute yourself.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible.
I want to explain this with an example. Suppose a single individual is trying to fish in a limited source of water. And now the first thought, maybe it will be like, I will take all the fish and I'll be very rich and wealthy with the prosperity I'm gaining. But now the second thought is the sustainable development. If that person will think that I will take some fish and save the rest for the later, then the reproduction of the fish will be like much faster compared to the later, and I will gain more profit, and it will also harm the environment less. But as we know that a common pool resource, one cannot privatize a ocean or a water resource. So there are many marine sectors and like small fishermen and women coming to take the fish. So collectively, they are not thinking about the sustainable development, which is leading to a tragedy. Because if we collectively think by teamwork, we will distribute, like save some fish and take the rest, then it will help us. But we are thinking about ourselves, which is causing a tragedy of the commons. So that's what I tried to explain.
So common pool resources are always overused. Okay. So it leads to so many issues, environmental issues. So there is a beautiful book written by Professor Hardins, that is Tragedy of Commons. You can read in your future life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Now I request DK Biswal sir to ask her a question.
Congratulations, Tanisha, for your nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Can you explain me what is sustainable development?
So sustainable
livelihood. You first explain me what is sustainable livelihood.
So carefully utilizing the resources and keeping it for future use without harming it in the present, so that the future can also take advantage of it without harming the environment. Now, in reference with the fisheries system, if we take up all the fishes, then we think that we are gaining wealth, but in the second hand, we're actually ironically harming ourselves. which is leading to the decline of sustainable development in this reference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanisha, for your beautiful answers. So we are done with all the presentations of the day. Now I would like to request Lambodar sir to speak a few lines. Sir, please.
Thank you, Devanshi, for giving me opportunity to present my viewpoint. First of all, I must express my gladness or my pleasure for listening to all the future stakeholders of our students. Beginning, you will and this is a beautiful topic which we also discuss and we also explore, and many things are to be explored and to be known. I shall talk 5 minutes because I will not take much time. And all of you know, rural development is the process of improving the quality of and economic well-being of the people living in rural areas. And why we are worried about the economic welfare of the rural people in India? All of you know, we came nearly, according to the 2011 census, nearly 70% of the people are living in rural areas. So if you neglect the welfare of the 70% of the people who are living in a rural area, and there will be a gross injustice to the people and to the country. So therefore, Mahatma Gandhi rightly said, the rural development is the engine of economic development or national development in our country. But the backwardness of the rural sector would be a major impediment. It will be a major stumbling block to the overall progress of the economy. So India is predominantly an agricultural country and farming is their main occupation. But unfortunately, when we introduced Green Revolution in 1965, the development did not percolate or trickle down to the lower sections or to the marginal farmers and small farmers. They could not get the benefit out of this because they did not have the capital, money capital, to adopt the modern technology of agriculture. But the water, seed and fertilizer technology could not be applied by the small and marginal farmers. And what happened after Green Revolution, we found the inequality again increased. The Green Revolution widened the inequality between the rich farmers and the poor farmers. So this became an issue in rural areas again. But if we deny the fruits of economic development to large sections of rural community, then the targets of our economic development, the targets set up by the leaders, policymakers to reach 5 trillion economy will be a distance, it will be a distant dream. So there are so many suggestions given by so many committees. The wonderful thing I shall tell you, All India Rural Credit Committee in 2003 has rightly pointed out that a purely agricultural country remains backward even in respect of agriculture. That means we are primarily agricultural, but we remain backward in respect of agriculture. And most of the labor force in India depends on agriculture, not because it is remunerative, but because there are no alternative employment opportunities. And I think all the students and the faculty members must appreciate this. And why there is a pressure of population on land. The pressure of population on land is there not because land agriculture is remunerative and there is much productivity in the agricultural sector. This is because of the lack of employment avenues. So the concept of agricultural diversification comes in. the concept of crop diversification again and non-farm activities gradually assumes a greater importance. Up to 1970s, when we were talking of rural development, it was synonymous with agricultural development, hence focused on increasing agricultural production. But today, inclusive rural development is more specific concept than the concept of rural development earlier. In broader terms, inclusive rural development covers three different but interrelated dimensions. The number one is economic, number two is social, number three is political dimension. Then what is economic dimension tells? Economic dimension encompasses providing both capacity and opportunities for the poor and low income households in particular, benefit from the economic growth. Social dimension supports social development of poor and low income households and promotes gender equality and women empowerment. And social safety nets for vulnerable groups. Political dimension improves opportunity for the poor and low income people to effectively and equally participate in the political process at the village level. So these are the three aspects we have to take care of.
Thank you, sir, for.
I'm not. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I shall conclude here, giving importance on key issues in rural development. So we should always focus on these three aspects, then there will be ultimately rural development. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your beautiful words. Now, I would like to request DK Biswal, sir, to speak a few lines.
Respected Principal Madam, Supervisor, faculties of Department of Economics and Commerce, and all my dear students. I feel proud to be a part of this seminar. I thank the organizing secretary to invite me as a judge. We all know that India lives in countryside. Near about 70% of the total population on the basis of 10 census, that is 2011, live in rural areas. But what we will find, majority of the people, they live below poverty line. Most of the people, they do not have minimum 2 meals per day. So this is a precarious scenario of India. So then the government has to focus on rural development. So after new economy policy, the government of India introduced different new schemes to enhance agriculture productivity, farmers' income, and also employment opportunities. Though Indian economy grows at a very faster rate, but the poverty rate in the rural areas did not reduce. So from the 12th five-year plan onwards, there is a policy of inclusive growth. That means the growth will be associated with development. The growth will remove poverty. The growth will provide minimum basic necessities to all the people. When we talk about how to increase the per capita income of the farmers living in rural areas, there are three issues. One is how to increase productivity of the farmers. Second, how to increase skillness or the technical knowledge on farming. Third is how to sell their products at a better price. So when we talk about how to increase productivity, the productivity is again related to credit, related to infrastructure, related to inputs. So the credit pattern is now very precarious. Why? Because the RBI instruction given to the nationalized bank or it is to RRB, regional rural banks, has not been followed. The targeted amount of loan is not given to the farmers because they do not have any collateral. And again, when due to global warming, when there is a crop failure, they are unable to repay. So in that situation, the farmers ultimately made suicide. So nowadays, this is a very common case. Second, what the farmers they are producing, they are selling at a very distressed price. That means what amount the farmers has incurred as expenditure to produce his crops, he is unable to sell it in the market. Ultimately, he is forced to sell it at a very low price. So a systematic market is not there. Third is, in agriculture, with agriculture, there is also allied sector. What are the allied sectors? That is non-farm sector. Non-farm sectors are, some are manufacturing, for example, handloom. Handloom is very famous. Most of the handloom products are exported to the world, and it also earns huge amount of foreign currency. It should be promoted. Though the government has framed an organization to look after it, but the small weavers, they are not getting adequate wages. Second, most of the people, those who are living in rural area, among them are tribal people or backward communities. The tribal people main source of income is forestry. So they should be taken care of. Now due to industrialization, the share of the forest is reduced. And the livelihood of the tribal people, it is also affected. And in most of the areas, most of the rural areas, people are uneducated. If you look into the Niti Aayog evaluation study, the productivity of a farmer, the productivity of a labor living in a rural area is very much less than that of the urban area. The urban area productivity of labor is double that of the rural area. So the skillness, the productivity of the people, labor, or those who are residing in rural area must be enhanced. How it can be enhanced? By providing education, by providing training, and also other support system, so that the people, the percentage of the people, those who are depend on agriculture, they will be reduced, just like in developed countries. Nowadays, what we will find? We find that the percentage of people living in rural area, it is 68% of the total population. But initially it was 80%. Due to urbanization, most of the people, they are searching job, they are migrated from rural area to urban areas. So it must be stopped. The people, those who are staying at village area, they must get adequate job opportunities so that they can earn the minimum level of income and have a better life. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Now handing over to Janvi Mahapatra for vote of thanks.
Thank you, Debansi. I would like to end this event on a happy note by thanking and congratulating to all the participants of today's event who have given their best to bring out such an amazing seminar for today's afternoon. My heartfelt thanks to the judges of seminar, Dr. D.K. Biswal sir and Dr. Lambodar Raut sir, for sharing their valuable time with us and encouraging the participants. I would like to thank our Honorable Principal Ma'am for organizing such a beautiful virtual event. I take immense pleasure to thank our supervisor ma'am for her graceful presence. My special thanks to the teachers of the Commerce Department, especially Chinmay ma'am, Lopamudra ma'am, Sudesna ma'am, and Jogesh sir, who have been a constant guiding touch for us. My sincere thanks to our technical team, Diptendu sir and Niranjan sir, for conducting this virtual event so successfully. Lastly, thanks to everyone who has contributed for the success of this seminar. We look forward to see you again in the next event. Till then, take care, stay safe. Of course, don't forget to wear a mask and maintain the COVID guidelines. This is Janvi Mohapatra signing off. Thank you.
So thank you everyone. We are ending our today's seminar here. The declaration of results would be tomorrow.